Welcome to all of you who are viewing this. This is the 12th edition of the Times Techies webinars. Today we have with us the head of Mercedes-Benz R&D Center in India, in Bangalore. Bangalore is their biggest center. I have several, wonderful stories that I've heard over the years about Mercedes-Benz R&D Center here. Short form is what a lot of people know it by, MBrdi. In 2017, there was this major event at the center here in Bangalore. Several top executives and board members of the company had come down, and there was this interaction with journalists. There were also a number of European journalists who had come down. I think Mercedes-Benz wanted to showcase the center here. Shilpa, my colleague who is moderating the session with me, Shilpa and I were at the event. Mercedes-Benz's primary spokesperson on that day was Thomas Weber. He was then an advisor to Daimler. He was also, prior to that, a board member of the company. I think he's probably retired now. One of the things that he said, and I might be stealing a bit of Manu's thunder here, one of the things that I very clearly remember him saying was, in every Mercedes car in the world, there's a huge part of India. That was one. And then during the interaction, one of the European journalists asked him, asked Weber, can we say the artists are in Silicon Valley while Bangalore has the craftsmen who implement it? Weber's reply was striking. He said, that's the process we started with in India. The center had started in 1996. So he said, and he had been very closely involved right from the beginning, almost from the beginning, I think. So he said, that's the process we started with, but it's totally changed now. These guys are competitors of those in Silicon Valley. The game has changed. That was wonderful listening to him on that day, talking about Indian engineers in that fashion. So today we have with us Manu Saale. He, like I said, he's the managing director and CEO of the center, MBrdi. Manu is a local boy in some sense. He received his Bachelor of Engineering degree in Electronics and Communication from the University of Mysore. He started his career with Bosch in Bangalore. With Bosch from 1996 onwards, Manu got an opportunity to work on various automotive powertrain projects and applications. With Bosch, he had stints in Germany, China, Brazil, and South Korea. In 2011, Manu joined MBrdi to head electrical and electronics engineering. 3 years later, in 2014, he took over as MD and CEO. I'm told he can speak German almost like a native German. I'm told he can also speak Chinese Mandarin. Amazing journey that Manu has had. Manu, over to you. Sorry, I just want to also mention, Dipti Nayak, who heads HR for MBrdi, is also with us. Manu will initially make a presentation, which may be about 15-20 minutes. And Shilpa and I together will moderate the session. The chat box will be open. Viewers are welcome to send in questions. So Shilpa and I'll ask those questions to Manu and to Dipti. So welcome, Manu. Welcome, Dipti. Really nice having you here. And over to you, Manu.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sujit. Sujit and Shilpa, you've been part of so many memorable events at MBrdi in the past, from your media house, but also visiting and talking to board members. I'm really happy that you recollect some of those things. I'm sure I have some more stories up my sleeve. So
I'm sure you do.
Part of India. You've already mentioned that, but there's so many more stories that have been generated over the years at the center, which makes me really, really happy and proud to be part of this journey.
Great.
And I have a favor to pay you back as well. When you say local boy, I was just counting my age here. Right? That phrase really puts me on the positive side of it. Thank you so much. I'm told we have a very, very diverse audience this evening, isn't it? Because there could be students who are logged in. I've had friends who called me and said, their schools have been encouraging people to log into such webinars. You folks are doing a wonderful job there, bringing a lot of new topics to a diverse audience. So there could be 12th graders and budding engineers who are on the call today. There could be peers from the industry. and 4 or 5 years behind them, probably in automotive, probably outside of automotive. You didn't introduce the topic, but you left that to me. But we're talking digital in automotive today, which is also probably interesting to IT and non-IT folk in the webinar today. I know a lot of my colleagues are logged in. I certainly know my mom's waiting downstairs watching what's going on. It's the first time probably she understands what her son is doing for a job in the last 20 plus years. It's going to be fun today. I have a lot of friends who are logged in. This is one webinar where I can say my spouse understands me well. She's an engineer too, from the same background. So this is something I can proudly claim. But thank you so much for inviting MBrdi to the show. Deepthi and I are really happy to be here today. I'm trying to discuss a little bit, 15, 20 minutes. I see we are at 6:05, say 15 minutes of discussions on what is digital in auto tech and where are we actually headed. And then Deepthi and I will attempt to take some questions, technical from my side. If there are people related, she'll help me out as well on a couple of things. At this point, I'll just end up sharing my screen. There's a short PowerPoint that I love to show. So tell me if you can see that, and then we can get started from there. Just tell me when you can start seeing the screen once. Right?
Yeah, visible. Yes.
So thank you so much. It's only fair after Sujit did such a wonderful job introducing MBrdi to tell folk on the call a short overview of the company, history. I'm sure all the engineers are waiting there because one of the classic things, I know this, I've told Sujit,
Yeah, I think we lost Manu. No? Yeah, Manu, need to. Dipti, shall we call him up?
Yes, I've just messaged him.
You have?
He's joining back. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a network issue with that's why he has got logged out.
I thought it only happens to us. I have a lot of problems in my area.
Okay.
Sorry, we'll come back. Viewers, just hold on. I think Manu is trying to log back. Till then, Dipti, I know we were discussing before the thing. Hiring still strong, is it?
Yes, so far we are going good in spite of being in the lockdown.
Okay.
Am I back in?
Manu,
Yes,
hi.
back.
Manu, I think we lost you for some time. Yeah.
Right. Was wondering what happened because Zoom just kicked me out.
Oh, really?
I'll just go back and sorry for that short disaster.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Technical glitches, part of working from home under these times. But I hope you can see me as well as the slide again, right?
Go. Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, great. So just give me a hint if you can't, because I'm on direct connection now. short disaster
Yeah.
with technology otherwise. So we were just saying that it's only fair to introduce a little bit for the engineers in the call, what the company is doing, because one of the classic questions with which even we started, Sujit, Shilpa and me, long ago was, what does Mercedes do in India? I mean, what do they get out of this place? It's another thing that OEMs usually look for a destination as a market for their products. In this case, we're not talking about selling cars. We're talking about building them. We're talking about designing them, right? We're talking about all the energy and innovation that goes behind the scenes in bringing these wonderful products on the road. And I think that's where the story of MBrdi starts. And as Sujit said, 1996, that's like a 24-year history now. When Mercedes discovered Bangalore, if I may say, India, because we also have a great office in Pune that's doing some fantastic work. As you see, that's the largest R&D center, IT center for Daimler outside of Germany, right? We should be proud of that fact, all of us who tune on to this call. We're doing, as you may know, the portfolio, product portfolio under the roof of Daimler is, containing cars, vans, trucks, buses. You've seen all of that on the streets around the world, and we are working with all of them, all the business units, in a way, if you can understand the diversity of work at MBrdi. There's this key topic on the third vertical on my slide there that says we provide digital tailwinds, something that I want all engineers on this call to be fascinated and excited about, right? We're talking about digital, and we're talking hopefully by the end of this call to excite the mechanical engineers in this call, the stylists in this call, certainly the electronics and the computer science graduates, on how much digital product development has gone, on how much of dependency on computers and on tools and techniques today in the industry. Before you go to a prototype phase, how much of digital actually happens. Hopefully, Sujit, we get some questions and try to understand why digital touches the lives of all kinds of engineers today, right? It doesn't matter if you've graduated out in mechanical, if you've graduated out in mechatronics, in industrial production, in production. I'm interested in all of that. I can give you a digital touch to all of those fields of engineering. And I hope that excites a lot of our people who've been otherwise, from 26 years ago, where you say, beta jaake electronics padho, beta jaake computer science padho. And you'll actually see how digital has kind of leveled that playing field completely. There are two keywords mentioned there. We'll keep coming back to that now and then. One is called core, which is the traditional part of any automotive company's business, manufacturing diesel and gasoline, passenger cars, powertrains, and so on. There's another keyword on the third vertical you see there called CASE. It's in capitals because it's an acronym. C for connected, A for autonomous, S for shared, and E for electric. 4 verticals that, like we recently heard in a meeting, if all of us in this call have heard the term VUCA world, you can say CASE is the equivalent of VUCA for automotive, right? You just have to replace the 4 letters, VUCA, volatile, completely uncertain, right? All that you discuss about in a VUCA world, and bring it and say that's CASE, because CASE is completely upset the way we work. 4th but important vertical, something that India has been classically known for since the Y2K days. We're talking about IT in large measure. We're talking about creative things we can do with IT, both in-house, but also with the top Indian IT houses and suppliers that are around us. I'll catch up a little bit on the slides because I know we lost a couple of minutes with the digital issue we had. Left hand of the screen, 1886, the inventor of the automobile. And Sujit, you've seen this spark in the campus. If you come next time, we can drive that. The one that Gottlieb Daimler and Carl Benz invented, the first ever automobile, on the left side of your screen. On the right side, you see Vision Avatar that was recently launched in the US on stage, right? Our view of the future of automobile, the future of mobility, right? Of course, it's James Cameron from Avatar and Mercedes-Benz styling team that's together come up with the future of mobility. There is no steering wheel, it's by design, it's by intent. You steer this vehicle completely. And if you guys are on social media and looking at your WhatsApp, there's so much going on right now about a car that's moving sideways. It's exactly this one. Vision Avatar that most of you must have received, forwarded friends and so on. Right? So I think Mercedes is standing for something. Our design has been relevant for the times. If it's 1886 or 2020 or the 2050 vision that you see on the slide, they've all been relevant. It's at this point I'd like to kind of digress from that beautiful futuristic vision we have, and come to what's actually the challenge in front of the industry right now. And so many who are tuned into this call probably wondering, what are you up to today? Is it software development? Is it IT? Where are you headed? And you see the left side of the screen where you're talking about the top 2 challenges in the automotive industry today. First of all, there's a disruption in terms of technology progress. While progress is a positive word, I use the word disruption because the speed at which it's happening and the changes that it's bringing back into the industry is just unprecedented right now. We have only one chance, that is to react to it, right? Otherwise, just like the digital tsunami took over, the Netflix came in place of the previous person who was renting out VCR cassettes and DVDs, just like an e-tailer came in to challenge your retail business, just like the home rental business has been taken away by digital, the auto industry is simply on that line where the tsunami is just eating us and coming to us very soon. So there's only one chance, not to run away from it, but to stand and react. Technology progress should excite a lot of engineers in this role. And I can tell you, there's nothing from material science to lightweight materials, to look and feel, to smell in the car, to acoustics, to software, lines of code, to artificial intelligence, to robotics. This is a it's software product. It's a life on wheels, which is moving around in cities around you. And if you've watched some of these Hollywood science fiction movies and say that's where mobility is headed, we don't think that's far away from reality. We really think that it's very realistic at this time. Second topic, a little bit to the dark side of the auto industry, right? There's also the dads and moms who are looking at the tailpipe emissions and saying, oh, that's a lot of smoke that comes out of an automobile. We're talking about sustainable mobility, green mobility, and you see it on the right side. Therefore, we believe a message to all the engineers, budding engineers, the engineers who are working, who are listening on to us. CASE, the 4 acronyms, where we believe there's a lot of innovation that's happening. And secondly, everything that the auto industry is aiming for, carbon neutral mobility, right? 2039, 20 years from 2019, when we actually took that pledge. If you Google up and look for Daimler's ambition 2039, in 20 years, Daimler would like to go carbon neutral on its entire fleet. And you can imagine the amount of engineering work that's standing behind. I told you, right, I'll stay at that level for this call and for the 15 minutes that we have, but I'm glad to get into a detailed discussion at some point if there is interest. This is the slide. I've gone to the next one where I'm really looking out to the engineers. Sorry for the 12th graders who are saying, what is this now? There's everything about how a product gets developed. I'll try to keep it simple, right? I need to go down and explain to my mom what was slide number 7 about. So if you look at the bottom part of the picture and you see a car that's been kind of split half digitally and half physically. And I'm trying to tell you that I want to, if you can see the mouse, move this line as much to the right side as possible. This means, in layman terms, I want us to, and my engineering teams, to fantasize about the product development in the computers domain, in the digital realm, for as long as possible in the development chain, and come very late into a hardware phase. This is where India, the Indian team of engineers, the Indian innovation potential, the Indian computer scientists, physicists, mathematicians, simulation engineers of mine are all playing an active role. We are one center, and another tagline that Ola Lenius gave us this time, Sujit, the current CEO. If there's one center that can dream of this product digitally for as long as possible, that should be India, right? Because we have the talent to do it, we have the engineers to do it. Not being a large market in this country is also forcing me and my team to think digitally more. There's no hardware to run to, right? We're not in a market with a huge part-by-part production. Neither are we in a market where we're selling thousands of Mercedes. Wishful, would love to, but that's not the point. And therefore, forcing ourselves into the digital world, even if there are architects logged onto this call who are digitally until the first brick gets laid, you know what I'm talking about, right? We're styling you see on the left side of the screen, concept validation, prototype development, digital vehicle component testing. Somewhere at physical validation, you see the line breaking, and we're trying to push that line to say, do you really need prototypes. You wouldn't believe it. For a car program, about 120,000 test cars are driving around today in the world for us, doing various kinds of testing. Just imagine the billions that get saved, the environmental impact of it, the time that you need for all of this. All of that gets compressed in a way. That's the reason why I believe there's a huge potential in the years to come for digital, for computer science, for mechanical engineers who are able to dream and understand the systems behind this and turn this into a digital product. Just look at this picture in a different way. My next slide there. Again, a car from body in wide on the left side of the screen, the right side of the screen, sorry, going all the way through its digital mesh into a complete physical product. And you see how engineers play a role, starting specification on the left side, going on to mechanical engineering, where we do a lot of work on solids and surfaces. Meanwhile, write millions of lines of code in what is classically, simply called as software development outside. It could be model-based development. It could be really lines of code. It could be just integrating objects from outside. It could be simulating. It could be artificial intelligence and neural networks that you're bringing in the car. Going on to doing correlation, the last but one bubble, the blue colored one, and then finally going on to validating and testing. What you would actually do by burning rubber on a test track, you try to kind of minimize and bring it into a computer, right? I hope at that point I'm very happy to clarify this during Q&A for people who want to know more. But really, in simple terms, it's fantasizing the entire development chain in the computer domain and going to the physical domain as late as possible. This is the main job we are involved in. I'll give you, and for the rest of the generalists in the call who are probably wondering to say, what other trends are happening? Tell me what's, I'm not a mechanical engineer on this call. I'm a production guy. I'm an IoT guy. I'm a computer science graduate. I'm into virtual reality. All of that, I'm into manufacturing and robotics. All of that is part of the trends for the future. And you see the title of the slide, they are even disruptive factors in many ways. If we don't shape up, if we don't get our processes digitized soon enough, we will be blown away. And I think that's the most important, that's the biggest push we have as an auto industry. The push from behind, the force that's making us move is the speed at which digitization is happening right now. Look at artificial intelligence and machine learning on the left side, right on top. We can show you a lot about examples coming up in the next slide. It was a proud moment, Sujit, again, to go to Las Vegas, to be standing at the Consumer Electronics Show 2 years in succession, and to be able to showcase what Bangalore delivered for the car on an edge device on AI. It was a very, very emotional moment for a lot of my engineers who put in hours of work behind enabling that. Behind all of these trends, there's an important, very, very important factor, which is probably also interesting for some on the call, even if you're a complete generalist. The way people want to go from point A to point B is changing. Or in other words, mobility around us is changing. If there was the discussion of shared mobility a few months ago, pre-COVID, and people were all talking about rushing to public transport, metros and buses and so on, probably COVID, kind of jolted us out of that and said, let's go back to individual mobility. I feel safe with the air and the safety in the cocoon of my own car. This trend is changing dramatically. You and I hate to spend time in traffic. You and I would probably want to kind of turn it into productive time, right? Sujit, you know, I know I spend 4 hours in the car moving east to the south of Bangalore, and I'd love to turn that into, I'm driven right now, but I'd love to turn that into productive time by even enabling a kind of an office, by enabling better connectivity and turning my car into a much smarter place than it is today. So I think people are realizing there are smarter things to do than just commute and just hold on to your metro rail on the top and just commute, right? What else can we do is the question. And I think automotive industry has a significant role to play in reinventing mobility that way. And who else but engineers to do that, right? Especially when you look at Mercedes, we're looking at ourselves and saying, hey, we invented the car in 1886. We should be the ones who will reinvent it when the society is asking us to do it, right? And that's the spirit with which engineering is happening at MBrdi. There's a lot of passion behind looking at society, at the customer, and then trying to turn this into an engineering problem and eventually go ahead and solve it. That's behind all of that. You were excited to look at some examples, and here's one slide, actually my last one before we go into the Q&A, to look at one system, right? MBUX, the Mercedes.
I think we wrote about this, the motion sensor one, is it?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's gone to the next level now. This was still the picture from CES. And for all of them on the call, just look at the left side of the screen, and it's artificial intelligence. And the title of the slide that was standing in CES, if you're emotional about it like I am, and you see where does the magic come from, and people say, oh, that comes from Mercedes-Benz R&D India, right? That one slide is enough, to keep my entire team moving for the next couple of years, to say that, hey, the future is in our hands, and we can change it. That's been the story so far. There's a lot more to say during Q&A, probably, Sujit, but I'll stop at that point, and for Deepthi and me, we are happy to take questions. You're on mute, Sujit, so we can't hear you.
I'm still on mute. Okay, I thought I unmuted. Okay, thanks so much. I remember the motion sensor one. What are the other interesting things that you've done out of here? I remember also you had the complete responsibility for rear seats in Mercedes-Benz cars, if I remember correctly.
Thank you for bringing that up as well. Yeah. We've been proud to say that Mercedes stands for safety, one of the most safest cars in the world. So if you're in a Mercedes, you feel that much safe under challenging traffic systems and everything. And part of that safety, you said rear seat. So we've divided our safety into the front passengers, driver and co-passenger, and the rear seat, and a special topic, what we call as child safety, right? Just to manage other kinds of occupants, children in the car, and how they get the belt in because of their height and weight and so on. And the responsibility to ensure the rear seat safety. As a product, of course, we work on both, but the rear seat safety for all the cars in the world is happening out of India, out of Bangalore, right? That's one more example, and that's been going on for years now. Over time, we've developed more and more competence, and we've got it to that stage. The journey of digitization, simply of dreaming about a physical process, giving it, and I'm keeping it really simple now, but giving it a mathematical formula, understanding the physical world, and to kind of bring it into the computer. We have so many success stories there, many technical ones, but so many success stories there. Many of them leading to innovations, patents, and so on. That the center just goes on solving one engineering problem after the other in order to make that star behind it shining bright.
Okay, audience, the chat box is open. You can send in questions. Manu, can you stop the screen sharing of this? Yeah, okay, that's better. Software, there's now tons of billions of lines of code and all now, it seems, in a car. Is that software people are very important for you? To what extent?
When you start to look at the car as a software product on wheels, just like a mobile phone is a software product in your hands, probably travels in your pockets, therefore is on wheels, and everywhere else you go, and you say a car is a software product on wheels, you can imagine the importance of software with the automobile as we go on. This is to the lines of code, this is to the number of what you call as ECUs, electronic control units in the car. So millions of lines of code that we're writing. The latest S-Class that's coming up, or flagship product, will probably go close to the 3-digit numbers when it comes to the number of control units in the car, right? The last generation already had 80+ control units. Small size, big size, engine controller, transmission, body, doors, stuff that engineers in the call probably have heard of, and even more. And if you bring in now AI and edge devices, as we call, small chips that can FPGA devices that can compute things straight within the car without really going on the cloud and connected, then you're simply talking about an exponential increase of electronic hardware in the car, and each of them are made intelligent only with lines of code in them. right? So even more software to be written, various forms, like I told you, if it's model-based, if it's really writing code, if it's tracking object files, if it's putting in neural networks, but it's simply exploding. So software product on wheels, if this is the definition of the car, and we're all working, today for years now, 136 years after inventing the car, 34 years, the car has been a piece of metal, some software, agreed, there are OEMs that are doing over the air, I'm talking about one of them, and you can get some updates of software over the air and so on. But otherwise, you just buy a piece of metal and it stays, right? You're even probably happier with, that device in your hand because you're saying, I got a new app, it looks refreshed, its skin is different, you have a different screensaver and so on. We want to turn the car as well to what we call a gift that keeps on giving, right? You buy a car and it just keeps on giving because you go in, it's refreshed, it has a different digital look and feel. You have a new feature on your head unit, right? So to turn a piece of metal and rubber today into a gift that keeps on giving is a lot of software work.
Okay. Shilpa, your questions? Shilpa, you're muted.
Sorry. We have the first question from one of our viewers, Chandra Natraja. She wants to know, can you please talk about the Campus Connect program and the students outreach on behalf of MBrdi?
But the name is very, very familiar. I have a very close friend with the same name. If it's him, I'm going to call it for that right now. But you want to do that, Deepti?
Okay, so when it comes to Campus Connect, we are currently targeting, we are visiting campuses which has electrical, electronics, and computer science background. Basically within India, the entire India we are covering. We are also taking postgraduates from power electronics domain and computer science and electronics. We have a special program for women who are taking up mechanical engineering. We encourage women to take more and more of mechanical engineering, which would also help us in our diversity forum on mechanical side, because we see there is a less flow of people liking towards mechanical engineering from the women's side. So we encourage scholarship programs for that.
I think we should talk about it a little more, Sujit and Shilpa. That one topic, which is really close to my heart, it's called Mercedes and Mech, right? Mech like
Mercedes
in Mech like in mechanical engineering, right?
Okay.
MEC,
okay.
Right? And we're doing it for a reason. For those of you who don't know the story behind, Mercedes is actually the name of the daughter of one of the biggest customers we had at that time who inspired us. And it's actually a lady's name, right? So we have, and the first person who took out that 1886 car that you saw was also the wife of the inventor, right? She was the brave one. He didn't believe in his design. She was the brave one who took the car out and proved to the world that 4 things on wheels with a fuel internal combustion can actually drive. So there's actually a lot of women inspiration with the name Mercedes, but also behind the company's product. And it was a pity that we saw here in India, at least, a steady, or a lack of intake in that field of engineering, because probably people just didn't connect, our girls in the universities just didn't connect with how much feminine history or inspiration, let's say, this company has. And that's when we went back and said, we need more women in mechanical engineering. And classically, that's a field that parents don't encourage a lot. It's a man's domain. You probably have to go and go under a car for repairs or touch grease on your hands and stuff like this. And it had gotten so much digital meanwhile, and we realized that people don't even know it. So waiting for women to graduate out, if there's no intake, it's of no use at all. We did scout the universities. There's one very inspiring place in Pune where only women study here in the engineering college. That's certainly one source, but we wanted more. So what we went is to go around top colleges where we recruit from and kind of start to sponsor women in mechanical engineering already starting their third semester. If they choose mechanical, a certain amount of fees, annual fees, is paid by MBrdi. We've been doing that for 3 years now. We're getting to the 4th year this time.
Okay.
So we're catching them very young. And
at which level you said? At which level you said?
Third semester.
Third semester.
Yeah. Right. So they go on 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, getting inspired, through mentorship, through visits, through support. It's not just financial aid. We keep on inspiring them about where mechanical engineering is headed. If they wish to, they can also join us. So they get internships with us and join us. Now, this program is in such high demand that I have to kind of limit the numbers. It's a financial outlay for us as well. So we're taking some really top talent. I think we signed up with about 83 in the first batch, if I remember.
Yes, that's correct.
83 inspired women, top cream out of 10 or 12 colleges that joined us, who were sponsored a little bit later because we just started the program on a light mode at the beginning. And now we're, this year again, sitting in front of the next set of candidates. We'll interview, shortlist, and go through their journey, right? It's a different way of looking at things. It's not just going and saying, hey, I am going mechanical engineers. It's rather starting at third semester and keep on inspiring them all through their journey and then finally ending up hiring them.
You won't be expanding the program. You reached your budget limits.
It's not so much about expanding the program. I wish we could. There are years when we are saying all our intake can be women alone, right? They are in high numbers. There was a year we were staring at where all the freshman intake would have been women alone because of the commitment we have to Mercedes.
Okay. There's another question around internships. Internships play a major role. Is from Sai Teja. Internships play a major role in the industry, and the NEP also stresses on the same. Does MBrdi have internship programs for engineering students?
We do. It's limited. Most of the times we even get internships from the places we hire. So they eventually turn into graduate engineering trainees with us or postgraduate engineering trainees with us. I can just totally agree with Sai on the question. We've had some wonderful contributions from interns from really tier 1 universities, IITs and ISCs that have worked with us and delivered some stunning stuff. We believe in that program as well. It's all kind of limited by placements and budgets and so on, but we continue to look at interns as a great source for that.
Shilpa?
We have a question from Ashwin Raj. How does Mercedes plan to transition to hybrid electric vehicle and electric vehicle categories?
The Ambition 2039, which is basically going carbon neutral, obviously means that first of all, that the whole fleet turns carbon neutral, which is a heavy reliance on hydrogen if it's trucks or on electric fleets for the passenger cars, right? What you see behind me is also a EQ series, which is the electric equivalent of the C-Class or the S-Class.
Manu, some things are not clear when you're speaking.
Audio?
Audio-wise,
right.
Yeah, in between some things are.
Is it better now? Right. So I was saying that there's a huge dependency if you go carbon neutral by 2039. That will have to go electric in a big way on the passenger car side and probably hydrogen as we've announced on the truck side, right? That's a given on one hand. On the other hand, it's a journey. So you don't get to 2039 just like that digitally, right? So by 2022, that's just in about 2 years, you'll see that all of our portfolio is also available in electric. So in societies with regulations, in cities and in countries with regulations, but also with people who like to choose the greener equivalent. I mean, our diesel engineers are super clean and nice too, but if there's, and then people also go into electric depending on the tax shops they get in their countries. There's so many other reasons for buying, right? For the cost of ownership and so on. But if every model of ours is also available in the electric vehicle, then customers already start to get a choice of going in either for a diesel, gasoline, or an electric vehicle, right? Hybrid is included, I mean, the mild hybrid, plug-in hybrid, depending on which country and what regulations and what charging infrastructure they have. So with that, the journey starts, Shilpa, 2022.
Right.
By 2039, you're basically then replacing all of that and probably deciding the future of fossil fuels and internal combustion.
So hydrogen will not happen in cars. What made you take the decision between hydrogen for trucks and electric for cars? Hydrogen won't happen in cars, is it?
Well, not the focus right now. If you've Googled up and looked at our world drive we did with hydrogen and the B-Class, it's a very famous story for why. We've taken a B-Class, converted it into an F-cell vehicle, and actually a fuel cell vehicle, and actually driven around the world. So we've seen a lot of promise of that. But right now, for the kind of reactions and regulations in the societies and so on, there's a heavy investment and a strategic decision to first go electric before we go anywhere. And for the trucks, of course, in parallel, this joint venture that we've announced with Volvo to go more with the hydrogens.
Okay. Manu, there's still a problem with the voice. See if you come a little closer to the screen or something, maybe that will help. Huh?
I'm actually on headphones, so I guess just holding it up should help.
Oh, is it? Okay. There's this question from Pratik Singh Rana. You mentioned that a Mercedes car is like a data center on wheels. So how do you ensure data security and avoid any kind of breach? Yeah, that's a big question all the time. Yeah.
That's a big question all the time. There's in-car electronics, cybersecurity. There's out-car electronics and cybersecurity. And for this call, I just keep it to that level. That it's an active, working on data itself, and especially keeping all the country regulations in mind. GDPR in the US, whatever comes up in India, and so on. It's a constant task. So I can only in this call excite even more computer science engineers, cybersecurity professionals to say that sure, that's a challenging new area for us. I mean, there's everything about new technology that's challenging. If you're talking about electric and you say, Manu, your car is doing 450, we need 700 kilometers. If you're talking about connectivity and say, we need more data, or you're talking about data center and say we need security, this is where engineers in the room are needed actually, because there's so much more to do to get that software product on wheels running in an ideal way.
And I guess when these are finally on the roads, I mean, there'll be a lot of redundancies and all that. If something fails, something else takes over and all that.
For sure, yes.
Shilpa?
Yeah, we have a question from Deepesh. What's the expected timeline to reach to level 5 autonomous cars?
Some problem with Shilpa's line.
Yeah, but I think I heard her.
You heard
she's
it.
talking about level 5 autonomous.
Yeah.
Right?
Autonomous cars, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the timeline behind, right? I think I keep it very generic. I think the auto industry certainly experimented or is experimenting in several ways about how autonomous can a car get, right? Some claims of success, some experiments, unfortunately, in the US and other countries, some accidents as well, right? Lost some people as well on the streets, all of that. And you hear that the country is or the industry is in a big way pushing where to go. And you've observed it for sure, and for the sake of openness in the call as well, that the discussions on a fully autonomous has kind of gone down, and people are going back to a level 3, 4 kind of discussions. Joint ventures haven't really taken off well for many in the industry. Let's keep it to engineering speak in this call and leave the politics aside. I think we've just realized the amount of work that needs to be done, the brain we need to build into the car to be able to take decisions that you and I take when we try to service that. Right? So it's a while away, right? Before we can put all that intelligence, anybody goes on YouTube and finds out why did that Korean accident happen and what did the car see? The driver wanted to take control, he couldn't, and the sensors saw something else, it didn't see a truck parked on the way. What happened in the US with the other case, and so on and so forth. You see an engineer's attempt to build through cameras, on one hand, through sensors, radars, lidars, and then try to put it into an artificial intelligence, mostly within the car. Again, a limitation, because there's only that much you can do with the devices and the power that you need to compute all of that online. I mean, Jo andar ho raha, you need all of that. And we were joking in the past that the Indian traffic scenario could be a disaster, but I think it's a great test scenario for us to have eventually. To say if it works here, it works everywhere. Two-wheelers around you, cows and dogs around you, different kinds of mixed mode traffic around you. And you're still trying to achieve and take the right decision, right? Today's tests aren't even working on highways and autopilots. If you've seen, most of these tests are in autobahns and highways across the world. We're thinking about bringing such a thing to a mixed mode traffic scenario like this. What's standing between us is not our vision, not our passion and wish to do it. I think the societal need to go autonomous will continue to be there. I think it's technology and the speed at which we need to do it and the cost behind it, right? and the cost behind it. If you're arguing in a country like this to say, I can afford a driver, why do I need to pay 5 times more for an autonomous car? You're probably not wrong as well. So there must be a need behind, right? It's not a fancy that you can just switch off after some time. The industry is pouring billions into it right now. And that's the reason why we believe that engineers will take some more time to crack all the puzzles in the level 5, which is like the full autonomous, where you can really sleep off.
So which level are we in now? I mean, what MBrdi, I mean, Mercedes-Benz, for instance.
Well, you could have bought, you can buy a level 3 car for a long time, which is an advanced active safety system.
Okay.
We've gone beyond that right now, and there's a strong development on level 4 that's already happening across many OEMs, including us.
Level 4 includes what kind of work?
Level 4 is when you move beyond active safety and kind of are able to, as defined by SAE with the level 4, you're able to take your hands off the wheel for some time, but you get the controls back. So you need to be awake and looking, because you can get the controls back in case the car decides that it can't decide. Right? 5 is when the car says, I'm going to decide. That's just keeping it very simple. But
okay. I remember you saying, I mean, your strength is the mathematical and physics knowledge that Indian engineers bring. So yeah, is that, I mean, we are very strong in those areas, is it?
Absolutely. I think the whole digital fascination, it started with the word software development and all of that some time ago. As we realize how much more is possible digitally and what you need to understand in the physical system and bring it into the computer domain, I think this certainly is one of the strengths that we have in India. We've been talking about this, Shilpa and Sujit, when you've always asked us questions on where the talent is headed, what kind of talent are we looking for? We've always been looking for talent that's digitally more enabled, and I think that will continue.
Right. Manu, we have a question from Selvaraj. How has the digital ecosystem, and your digital assets collapsed the timelines for a concept to undergo modeling, validation, and then to manufacturing?
Was the word collapsed used? Did you say collapse?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. So that's actually the intent, Selvaraj, if that's the question.
Shilpa, what is the word used?
Collapse, Sujit. Yeah.
Collapse, like in compressed, right?
Compressed,
right?
yeah.
Right?
Collapsing the timelines. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very good question, because I think that's in fact the intent behind digital. When you started off and looked at that picture on PowerPoint with a timeline behind of quality gates and a typical OEM timeline of about 6 to 7 years before, from a drawing board to a job number 1, as we call it. And you want to reduce that. You want to reduce product life cycles. You're competing with consumer electronics, who's bringing out a new product on the shelf every now and then, every few months, every few years. And a car, if you call it a software product on wheels, has to react equally fast. You're having at least a target to bring it down, from 6 years to somewhere in the range of 4. And getting about 2 years out of a car development program is easier said than done. Those who've done it, And I think that's the kind of timeline we need to 24 months of crash. Not quoting me on exact 24, but like a 24-month crash over the time period of development, and you have to gain it from the analysis that you do, the software that you put in, the simulations that you do, the modeling that the colleague is speaking about, all of that, something like this.
Right.
You can be as aggressive as you want. Like I told you, if that has to be a gift that keeps on giving at the hands of the customer, they'd love a refresh every now and then, right? You'd love to have a new skin on the phone every now and then. So something similar.
Point about, Indian engineers, obviously, we are not in those environments for which you are building. MBrdi is building for, in some sense, a very different environment. How do you ensure that your engineers know the environment in which they should be building for? I believe the radar frequencies could be different. The whole autonomous environment is different. And yet people sitting here in India, in Bangalore, is able to design cars for Western economies.
Well, actually, very good question. But I can tell you, that's the strength. I want my teams to fantasize in the digital domain and turn this opportunity or the weakness of not being in the market, not being in the Western world, not being where the action is, into a strength. Right? That's exactly the intent, because as soon as you get to touch the physical body in white hardware, chassis, and what else, you kind of, that's an excuse you fall back on. You know, one of the classic things that happen at headquarters is, out of 125 years of engineering, as soon as something is ready, they run to the hardware to test it out. My engineers don't get to fly down to Stuttgart as often. They do a lot, but not as often. And therefore have to kind of hold back and test out their POCs on the computer and stay on that domain for as long as possible. And I've been talking to them to turn this weakness into a strength, into an opportunity. In fact, I even think that we've come up with so many digital ideas because we don't have the hardware. I can imagine there's a bit of, you know, conceptualization and thinking that you need to do. As soon as you swipe into MBrdi and come in, every seat is a Mercedes driver's seat, right? Every cubicle is a Mercedes driver's seat, because you're sitting in and saying, doesn't matter what brand I drove in, right now I'm driving a Mercedes, and it has to be one, because the tagline behind says best or nothing, right? And that's the kind of thinking shift that you need to bring in when you're at work. But I think a lot of Indian software professionals too have been doing it for a very long time. We're living two lives, right? As soon as we enter the four walls of our business compounds, we start to work for that bank, for that software, for that engineering company, for that flight company or aeronautical company that's doing our products, and then switching it all off and taking the BMTC home. So I think this has been our strength, that we can multitask and think in different domains and switch contexts so easily. I'm proud of that, actually, and we'll continue to do that.
But you send your engineers also to those markets. To what extent?
Well, there are simplest things. I mean, the charm is working offshore, right? India is where you get all that talent advantage, cost base, fixed costs, buildings, you know, you with families, a lot of emotional and business factors that work well for us here. I don't think the charm is there if you simply go and say that, you know, the whole team is cut and paste in Stuttgart today. I don't think we'll have either the cost position or the skills that are needed to do that. Like I said, turning all those things into a strength. But still, about say 8 to 10% of my people are flying around. Right? That's like 800 to 900 people of ours who are flying around just to get some specifications, do an annual meeting, test something in the lab. To give you an example, Sujit and Shilpa, you all know that it's a typical activity in automobile, what you call as a crash test, right? So there are various phases of it before you go really to an authority and prove that your car is safe and crash worthy, depending on. We've been doing crashes digitally in Bangalore, right? High compute power, lot of work, but people are proving crash worthiness and structural strength on the computers. At some point of time, if you remember my slide, we'll have to go and prove that the physical domain indeed behaves like your digital results predicted. What's going to happen? For that, you need an expensive crash center, which is in Stuttgart right now. So at some point of time, you'll have to carry your digital results literally on a USB and then go there and sit there and say, this is what I predict, right? And before you ask, we've already come to a point where our predictions are super correct, right? You can already say before a physical crash that your computer predicted that this is going to happen.
Right. Okay. I'm wondering if it's more attractive now to work with Trump creating all these problems to go overseas and work from there for the IT services companies. It might be more attractive to work in companies like yours and for the engineers. Shilpa, any questions?
Yeah, we have a question from Shamshwi. She wants to know what are some of MBrdi's CSR initiatives in India?
Oh, great question. We've been believing that a lot of our staff as well who've joined us recently have joined us because our CSR program excites them, right? Because a company and we have two aspects to CSR. The classic one that you'd know, where we just simply have to spend 2% of our money as the government's prescribed it. I have been turning that around over the years, especially in an automotive company, striving for carbon neutrality. It's so simple to derive it next, to to say if we are a company that's in a way in the thick of the carbon neutrality discussions, how can we tune our CSR to that as well, right? How can we tune our CSR to mobility discussions around us and not so much only to just giving, as many people simply think about. One of the biggest programs that TOI has also covered for us, we started in New Delhi 2016 and went around the country talking about road safety. I spent a lot of time, money anyway, but a lot of passion and effort in putting my team together that went around. For those of you who didn't know, India is the country with the #1 traffic deaths in the world, losing 150,000 people to traffic accidents. And if you're a company that's so proudly saying, I have a lot of safety knowledge, it just makes sense that I tie that together and go around the country and kind of educate people, talk to them, demonstrations, talk to the transport ministry. And that's an ongoing program from us. If you Google up safe roads as a brand, you'll see what MBrdi is doing on road safety. This is #1. A sub-brand of that for CSR has been talking to children. And I'll tell you why. While it's always inspiring and exciting to talk to kids in general, I think we're looking at them as potential road users. Right? Doesn't matter pedestrians, cyclists, but also car users in the future. And catch them young has been the motto. Doesn't matter Mercedes and Engg or if it's CSR. We've been going to schools. We have discussed this topic and implemented mobile kits in 100 schools already, in and around the 2 locations we're working in, Bangalore and Pune, but also in Chennai, in Delhi, where I was personally there. We've been meeting children and giving them basic traffic and safety instructions and education. And this is not a one-time module. These are textbooks that are given out to schools. It's neither a one-time visit to the school. We train the trainers in the school. We actually teach senior kids to go on and keep on repeating that module in the school. So until you're in that school, you not only learn safety knowledge, in many cases we've gone ahead with physical activities, painting zebra stripes outside, getting the cops to install speed breakers, safety signs, all of that. 100 schools, children are kind of impacted positively by this road safety education that we're dealing with. Recently, no discussions, we've been working on COVID as well, trying to talk about what can we do emergency in this year. Unfortunate for COVID, but fortunate that it started with a new tax year in April and a new CSR budget. So we have devoted a lot of our monies and efforts in order to help a little bit. So this is going to be an exceptional year where COVID-19 is in focus. But otherwise, you can imagine a company in the mobility space is trying to spend more money in that space.
Okay, I have a couple of questions here. Let me ask one of them. This is from Sachit. Again, it is similar to a question asked previously. How can a student from a tier 2/3 college get noticed by MBrdi to secure an internship or a job?
Yeah, can imagine, right? We've always been talking about students who come for advice, even personally too, and ask the question, does it really matter where you study, right? The answer is yes, unfortunately or fortunately, because there's a lot of discussions around who has the reach and who has the base in order to reach out and so on. With the intake that we have, we go around a couple of tier 1, but also a couple of tier 2 colleges right now as well as we speak. We believe talent can be hidden in all parts, right? But it's not practical right now to expand that reach so much that we go around looking at every possible university and college. Therefore, sometimes when we conduct a written test or an interview in one of those colleges, we make it open house. So we don't come to every university. We just announce it. I think Deepti knows this better. We just announce it on the social media. It doesn't matter then from where you are, you can actually come and attend to something. Now, Sujit, this is not really internship then. This is then towards a job, right?
For a job.
Yeah. So you take a different route into MBrdi than not an internship.
Okay. Deepti, you want to elaborate that? What is this announcement you made?
For any kind of job openings, we encourage applicants to go to our career site. More and more information is also available on our LinkedIn page, where we put our latest trends, what the technologies we are working on. That would give you more insights about what topics are we working on right now. And our all open positions are listed on our career site. So I request and encourage all the people to visit our website.
So if they sent a resume to you through that channel and all that, I mean, does everything get seen or?
Of course, yes.
We
try to respond to each and every application which we are getting.
Okay.
And if you see, there is on the screen, it is displayed right now. There is one link that is MBrdi.co.in, which is the career site.
Okay.
So if people visit that, the applications would hit our RMS system and we would be responding to the application based on the selection criteria, but we do respond. We also have our jobs posted on our social media on our LinkedIn page, which diverts again to the career site.
Okay. So another similar kind of questions from Felix. Hi, sir. Do you have any MOUs with colleges and universities in India for co-curricular technology training on campus?
We have MOUs when it comes to engineering work, innovation, all of that. Not training per se. On the other hand, I'm personally part of the NASCOM's ER&D Council. And we've gone through a couple of discussions in the past and turned it around into, let's say, ER&D recommended syllabus to universities that are interested to turn mechatronics and automotive electronics, design, styling, whatever else into a subject. And just this morning, I was also talking to my teams to see if we can also go and teach in those places, like spend a couple of hours, guest lectures and so on. One of the biggest things, admittedly, for all of us, and sadly nothing has changed since when I graduated to today, is the gap we have between academia and industry. There's been a lot of effort on both sides to reach out, no doubt, but we're battling history there. There's a lot to be fixed.
To what extent have things improved?
Things have improved a lot. I mean, at some point of time, we were discussing how much is the gap and how long does it take to, let's say, corporatize an engineer that comes out of an university without hands-on, without internships. We never had internships in our company, for example, right? I never had a mentor from the industry who could tell us something. We didn't have syllabus that we could teach. I remember a couple of years ago in a Tamil Nadu city with Tier 2, where one of the offices was set up, and I was going to some universities to talk with them. People who used to teach automotive electronics had vehicles or had driven vehicles that didn't have any electronics at that point of time. And admittedly, it was difficult for them to understand the subject and let them teach it, right? Today, those things have improved quite a lot. I think there's a lot of socialization of that information in the academia. And today, it's a much better place with all the connects we have. Still a long way to go.
Okay. Shilpa, any more questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. This one is coming from Hirak. Hirak wants to know, due to the pandemic, the automobile industry has suffered a lot of losses. Are there any short-term, long-term strategies to help the industry get back on its feet?
Well, if you've been reading a lot online, it's not great news right now. The colleague asked the question. The industry is certainly faced with a lot of challenges. Case was an area, is still an area where the industry was sinking billions. It still needs a few more. If you want to get to the level 5 that you want, if you want to get to the ultra connected car that you're talking about, you want to get to electric and have a range of 700,000 kilometers, there's still a lot of investments that the industry is trying to do. On the other hand, the world's automotive market, so depending on financial markets, is behaving very different. So the uptake, sales, COVID has only amplified a lot of those things now. So admittedly, the industry is going through a very, very difficult time right now. I think one of you has to mute this. I can hear my It's probably the second line that Sujit has. Thank you. So admittedly, we're going through a difficult time there, balancing investments, and short-term actions are pretty tough. If you've been reading the media, you'll see what actions the industry is taking or planning to take. That's one part of it. What I see on the medium and long term, that will bounce back. And the only thing that we can do is to bring back those stunning products and solutions the customers want. And I always come back on this call and say, engineers, you have a task on hand. Digital engineers, you have a task on hand. We have a task on hand.
Shilpa, you had another question, no?
Yeah, we have another question from globally, what are the learnings from the Mercedes Formula One for customers?
It's a continued, let's say, learning ground for us when it comes to a lot of technology, right? Aerodynamics, software, you can guess already. Any Formula E as well, in terms of motorsports, let's say in that way, has been a big learning ground for auto companies to understand performance, dynamics, and to bring back some aspects of it to the car and keep it simple or short. But it's been a very good playground to learn a lot about technology, about dynamics, performances, on all aspects of the car, on all aspects.
I have, sorry, I've been having a lot of problems with anyway.
Sujit,
you want to take over? But I think we lost a minute.
You know, we have General Motors has set up its, TCS has taken over the facility for General Motors, 1,300 odd engineers. That news came out some time back. We have Rolls-Royce, MBrdi. So if you can talk about how the ecosystem is evolving and how India is in a great spot to do cutting edge engineering work.
I think, Shilpa, everybody has actually just realized the potential that India has with the topics that we spoke about.
Right.
I've been meeting a lot of these industry folk as well. And for the ones in the call that are probably interested more in management and leadership, we've also spoken about not just having great engineers in the team, but having some exemplary entrepreneurial mindset and leadership that's required to eventually bundle or even start dream, bundle, and sell these capabilities.
Right.
So it's a combination of two. I've told, if I call them competitors, industry peers who visited me, that India has the same thing to offer to all of us. At the end of the day, it's great talent that's out there, right?
Right.
You can hire them. I know I have a brand that's great and it's a magnet, it attracts people, all of that. Others are equally good and they all can do the jobs when it comes to getting some top talent on board. What comes next is in order to dream about your own product, if it's aeronautical, if it's oil industry, if it's automotive industry, it's generally software. Bundle all of that up and get entrepreneurial in terms of selling it to the world. If it's a context like ours, which is a captive context, as Sujit and you know, or if it's a context of another engineering company which has varied set of customers, that's a second aspect of ours. I think that has to come together, leadership in the companies. And you know, the Indian leadership also has its strengths. Some of the shining examples are standing out in companies in the world. And there's no reason why, if you bundle these forces, that you actually can't sell more. You see that as a trend in terms of new brands that are coming up in search of India, setting up shop and hiring talent, because we have the same thing to offer.
Right.
Okay. There's this question. Sorry.
Sujit, your voice is echoing.
Yeah. No. Can you hear me?
So one is picking up the audio of the other.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. There was this question: how much of the Formula One technologies are implemented in Mercedes?
Well, hard to say that this call. Thank you very much.
Okay. Shilpa, any questions?
No more questions, please.
No. Okay, we exceeded the time as well. Well, one last question. I mean, I know you said this in some future date. When will India make a full Mercedes S-Class or something? When do you have a? Can you predict when India will be able to do a full Mercedes car from here in India?
I turned that around a little bit. I think this product is what it is because there are global ways. Right? There's a great amalgamation of US, Germany, India, a lot of countries and talent. Israel with cybersecurity that's working with us. There's a lot of things that are coming together to make magic here. I think that's the charm of this product. I'd rather look at the role India plays in the value it delivers for today's assigned responsibilities, and for the entrepreneurial spirit that we kind of leap over and say we can do more. There certainly are areas where the Indian engineering talent has to measure up. Still, we're all working on those things. So it's more about how does this all come together? Because I think the world of business, the world of technology, engineering tools is just flying. No boundaries except for temporary ones with COVID. There are no boundaries. And a company like Mercedes offers a great opportunity to just collaborate across boundaries and bring people and minds together and make it a world product.
Okay. Thanks so much, Manu. Thanks, Dipti. It was wonderful speaking to you. I had lots of questions as well. A lot of students and engineering students and all were listening in. Amazing. I think you had MBrdi has an amazing journey. I think from people in NASSCOM and all, also we hear among the companies that have R&D centers that have matured a lot, doing some phenomenal work. MBrdi is one of them. So all the best to you, and thanks so much for coming on Times Techies webinars.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Thanks for inviting us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.